go live. Oh, hey, I guess it actually did go live. That was a little faster this time. Actually worked. Last time I tried to do a live stream, I had to start this thing like 4 or 5 times before I actually got broadcasting. So, since I still see there are no viewers out there at the moment, one, yeah, hey Russ, how goes? You got the honor of being first today, buddy. Hopefully you're having a good Saturday off. I don't know. I guess down there you have to deliver on Saturdays. Did you get today off? That's one thing I think we've got you beat. Our posties, they get to take Saturday at home. So I don't know. Is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? So got a few people kicking on. I guess we'll get to kind of the point. 3-day weekend. What's you got a 3-day weekend for? Oh, I guess Patriot Day is coming up. Is that 9/11 is now Patriot Day currently, according to my calendar? News to me. This here is what I have grown as a Burpee lemon hot or hot lemon. I can never remember which order it was on the tag, and I lost the tag last year. Hey, Caleb, thanks. Glad you're enjoying the vids. To me, though, this looks an awful lot like the Ahi Lemon Drop of Rob Z fame. So part of why I'm testing this live is so hopefully he can take a look at it in the future. Let me know if this is in fact the same thing, because I have an Ahi Lemon Drop growing in one of those coffee cans downstairs, and the peppers that are on it look pretty much like this one here, except they have a little bit of sun scald on them because Troll Garden got a lot more direct sunlight, I guess, somehow. But they've got some kind of a purpling on there that somebody was telling me is sun scalding. This is, yeah, a very bright pepper, Russ. That's one of the things I like about it. The thing I don't like about this particular pepper is when they dry, they get kind of a weird aroma that doesn't groove for me. It kind of almost takes a mildewy sort of smell. But fresh, assuming it still tastes like it did last year and the ones I grew back in Penticton, fresh, this has a nice, bright, crisp, fruity sort of flavor. I don't remember these being terribly hot, but those of you who have caught the live stream pepper tastings, you're aware my tolerance is not what it used to be. Ritsu, you made it. Yeah, thanks. Nice to finally see you in the stream too. Aren't you? You're in like Europe or something, I think. You're always telling me it's very late when I go live where you are. So yeah, I am going to try and kill a little bit of time here, which is unfortunate for those of you who popped in right away because you've got to wait. But I've learned with these things, once you eat the last of the pepper, you get like 5 people going on. Did I miss it? Did I miss it? And it's the only one I've got that's right. So I unfortunately can't run down to the dungeon and grab another one right quickly. I'm guessing down there with the temperature and the lights, it might be another couple of months before any of the plants or any of the pods that are on that plant actually ripen up, because I was just having major issues last winter when I brought the plants in, getting them to actually ripen. Feels like I'm saying that an awful lot at this point, though. So for everyone's amusement, I have yet another bottle of that homemade Melomel 3-berry honey wine, whatever you want to call it. Actually very lovely, and if it seems like I'm drinking a lot of it lately, it is because I'm drinking a lot of it lately. The coffee stuff that wasn't supposed to be ready for another 2 weeks is looking like it's just about ready to be racked, so I'm going to want some bottles to put that in. Unfortunately, we've only got about half a dozen of these things in the first place because Shocks and I weren't really big wine drinkers before I started this whole brewing experiment, so we've been kind of collecting them from our friends. And because this one has that kind of funky resealable top, they're like the only ones that we're using. There's only 1 or 2 people we know of who drink that brand of wine. So these things they're trickling in slowly. But they will get here one day. We'll eventually get enough to maybe rack off the whole 4 gallons into bottles at one go. Until then, there's always that Mr. Beer holds 2 gallons, I think. 23:11 in Finland. Yes, it is very late. Well, thank you for taking a few minutes to hang out with us anyways at this particularly late hour. I'm usually pretty much in rack by that point in time. And if I'm not, well, those are the nights when you never know. Shocks and I might just be live at 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so I just took the top off of that Burpee lemon hot lemon, whatever. And it does still very much have a citrusy aroma that's very, very delightful. Good day, Babette. Oh, speaking of Babette there, Shock says you have been following along in our fight with the hornets outside. We have started attempting to kill those guys with some Doctor Doom. There's a video getting put together. It's going to be a while before it goes out, though, because Shocks is getting it on her camera because it was at night and it was kind of a high def thing. And my camera can't deal with that. Excuse me. We have to check back on it in a couple of days, but I didn't hear any buzzing coming from it today. Need to get a few more clips, but hopefully we'll have that out in a week or two, and hopefully that hornet's nest situation will be dealt with. This pepper smells so nice when it's fresh, but like I was saying, when it's dried, it just so does not work for me. Just kind of carving off the side of this, so hopefully you can get a look at the seeds in there. Try and use the hand trick. Try and focus that a little bit better. It doesn't want to work. My camera's like right in the center of my monitor, so if I block myself, I can't really see what's going on. We're not getting a clear picture of that at all, are we? But there are a decent number of seeds in there, and they look like they're properly developed. So I am going to harvest these, pull them out, because I didn't get a lot of them last year. And that said, though, the peppers that came, like the plants that sprouted from last year's seeds, were all pretty productive. That's what I was using in my cloning experiments downstairs. So, like, in theory, I've got 32 clones that might produce these or will probably die based on my history with rooting pepper cuttings, which kills me. Kang makes it look so easy, and I've seen his video on that so many times. And I giggle every time I put out a video on cloning because I know somebody's going to go, have you checked out Kang Starr's video? I say, yes. Yes, I have. We got the inside of that again, you still can't see very well. Well, it worked out a little better this time. The trick is distance from the camera. Okay, so there we go. Kind of a thin-walled pepper, right? And much like that last one, I'm going to do this in slivers over the course of a little while because there's always people that show up. But that is the side sliver all the way from the top, most of the way to the tip. So in theory, it should be a very balanced example of what this pepper tastes like. It does kind of have that sweetness like I was expecting. The only lemon aspect in this, though, really is the color. It's a very, very bright lemon yellow pepper, and that is cool. But there is no lemony to the taste. Not exactly what I would call a hot pepper either. Those last ones kind of lit me up. This one's just kind of, I don't know. It's almost on par with what I would expect from a sweet bell. Excuse me. This is not a reduce the heat beverage by any means, but I don't see any point in trying to wait it out because I'm not catching any heat. So out of curiosity, what were the best and worst peppers anybody grew this year? Anybody have a particularly productive plant or a particularly failed plant? I think my most productive were probably the Matchbox and then that paper lantern for first year peppers. Although the paper lantern is dying downstairs quite fast, which is a bit of a tragedy. Because I was really hoping those peppers would grow to ripen up and I'd be able to keep the plant and move it forward, have a second year habanero. But that's exactly what happened last year too. I brought in that habanero. It looked really good. It was really loaded, and then all of a sudden, dead. No signs of aphids yet, so that's good. I still haven't given anything any type of a fertilizer boost though, so that's kind of helping there from what I hear. No peppers for you, Babette. Okay, well, other crops. What was your bumper crop of tomatoes, cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprout, fruits? I have caught a few of your videos. I think you have some fruit trees growing on down there. Is that right? I watch so many garden channels. It ends up as a bit of a blur, and I feel really bad sometimes because I don't know the specific gardens as well as maybe I would like to. Brain's not working as well as maybe I'd like it to either. This probably isn't helping. But on the upside, it's a Saturday afternoon and, not a middle of the week sort of event. So that is delightful, very thin. I shared some of it with a friend and they pointed that out too. There's not a lot of body to this. So I don't know if that's just an aspect of meat or something that I did perhaps a little bit wrong. Lima beans. Never grown lima beans. Trying to figure out what to do next year for a bunch of different varieties. Like this year was a bunch of different varieties of tomatoes. Last year I had way more varieties of peppers. I'm always going to be adding more varieties of peppers and kind of cycling through them because I've got so many seeds. But kind of thinking maybe, I don't know, should I try cucumbers? Grow as many different varieties of cucumbers next year, or beans possibly, like lima beans and those rattlesnake beans. And possum got all the figs. Oh, that's brutal. On the upside, possums eat ticks too, so that possum's also your friend. Your friend's a bit of a prick, but yeah. I love figs. It's one thing, much like the Saskatoon berry addiction I have from my childhood. I love fig Newtons. People look at me so strange, but I'll buy a pack of those. I'll stick them on the dashboard, go for a drive on a nice hot day, warmed by the sun. A fig Newton on a road trip is just, it's one of those perfect snacks. Ranks right up there with cold cheeseburger, and don't even go into that. But all right, I guess it's getting on time for another one of these slices, which is, kind of the point and purpose of this whole video. Not a lot of burn to it though, so I feel like I'm kind of disappointing you, but this one's got some more. And a weird taste. Okay. That one definitely had a bit more heat to it. And a bit of I almost want to say it's a soapy taste. So it makes me wonder, is it the ahi lemon drop or the ahi pineapple that people say often comes up with a soapy taste? Yeah, that second slice had a lot more oil in it. Definitely lit up my tongue, like the center of my tongue. Not really on the lips, not really on the roof of my mouth. Slowly crawling back into the throat. I can definitely feel the sweat coming up inside here, coming up through my sinuses, basically. What do we got here? Ritsu yellow habanero. Wasn't nearly as productive as the red ones in the cayenne. Had one rooted cayenne cutting outside, but the aphids destroyed it. Aphids are bastards. Sap sucking bastards. Oh, I feel your pain. Whew. This is a totally different pain at the moment, but oh my goodness. I have lost so many plants to aphids over the years. I am seriously considering ordering some praying mantis eggs this year. Hatching those out in the dungeon if the aphid situation gets too intense. But as I've said a couple of times, I'm not going to be adding nitrogen, and I am going to be adding potassium sulfate. Was Stogie Farts recommended to me. I don't know if you guys are familiar with his channel, but you should go check him out. Great beard, great pipe smoking fella, good aquaponic garden. I've been watching him for a good long time, but he recommended the potassium sulfate, which may or may not fall under organic, but he's used it in his aquaponic garden. It's totally safe for his fish. And it is basically a 0050. So obviously, I'm only going to need to add tiny bits of it. But if I understand this correctly, N is about plant overall, like upward growth. P is about fruit and root growth. And K is about overall plant health, immunity, just plant health in general. So a 0050 should effectively be like a hardcore B vitamin for your plants. It's kind of what I'm thinking. So I'm going to order some of that. And I'm hoping that by boosting the plant's immune system, even if the aphids do attack, they'll be strong enough to survive it. And I'm hoping that by keeping the nitrogen levels low, I'll have less leggy growth. And, there won't be quite as much for the aphids to attack. So, we'll see how much of it is a nutrient imbalance issue. I could easily believe that most of the aphid problem is entirely bear related. I don't have a whole lot of experience with this. I've been trying to grow indoors for a few years, but now since we moved out to Manitoba and we're on our own in our own house, I feel a lot more comfortable with just kind of bringing in plants and the whole pest issue and potentially bringing in pests to the house or whatever. In a rented place, I don't know, it just didn't seem like it was a nice thing to do. And our old landlord was really cool. I mean, we lived there for a decade. He never raised the rent once. So that's pretty cool. Not really sweet enough to kill much of the heat. It is definitely dying down, though. It's not a very long burn. Still very prominent on the middle of the tongue. But you know how some peppers, you eat them and then you start talking because, like live streaming and stuff, or just hanging out with your friends. And the more you talk, the more it burns. This doesn't really seem to be one of those peppers. It kind of is just dissipating at the same rate regardless. So hi from Indiana. Well, howdy from Manitoba. Nice to have you with us, Eric. We've got a little bit of a slice here. Wait a few more minutes before I get back into that. I want to kind of let this run its course first. That first piece was a total lie compared to the second piece. So I really have no idea what to expect from this third one. Is it going to be even hotter? Is it going to be, just as not hot as that first one? I have no idea. Good pepper, though. Not lighting me up as much as some of the others. So, not terribly hot by any means, especially, compared to some of the people in the PLC eating those psychotic, like reapers, like their candy and stuff. I am so not in that league. Chocolate bootla DMs and all that jazz too. Yeah, totally not in that league. But for me, getting back into the swing of things is I'm trying to grow more and more peppers here in my, well, it was what, about 3.5 months season? June, July, August, September, and it's shutting down. So yeah, we got about 3.5 months this year. So long garden season here in the Toba. Tell you what. Try and delicately slice this in half again. Getting kind of chilly outside, but I've got the window open anyway because it just rained. So right now the air is so fresh with that just rain smell. Excuse me as I get that drip there. Ritsu actually had a very hot and dry summer in Finland, so there were an insane amount of aphids compared to past years. Well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I'm really lucky with my outdoor gardening adventures because we seem to have enough natural pests out there that the aphids don't really show up. It's in here that the aphids take down so many of my young plants. I never had a chance. Probably should not have touched my nose with my bare hand there, but what do you do? Okay, so one more sliver. Okay. Got a very solid skin on this particular pepper. Like, got to grind pretty hard to get through it, but it's got some good flavor. Still not really getting any sort of lemon other than the color. Eric, we could get up to 7 inches of rain today. That sucks. We got a bit of rain coming in, but it'll never total anything like that. We're lucky if we get, 1 or 2 inches on a hardcore rainy day. Weird little bubble we live in here. Very strange. Very strange. Then we get those hardcore nights where it's thundering and storming for hours and it just fills up the IBC tote. You can't really decide. Most raindrops, though, most rainstorms, I should say, very minimal compared to what I'm used to. I grew up in British Columbia, so the rainstorms or the rain clouds get trapped in the mountains, and then they're stuck there dumping their weight until they can get up and over and go take over Alberta and annoy them for a while. But that means an awful lot of water weight gets dumped before it moves on. Whereas here in the prairies, I'm noticing there's really kind of nothing to keep the clouds in place. So they're, by the time you notice it's raining, it's done. So that's actually kind of fun. All right, well, we've got one last strip of this pepper here, and I just don't know. It's a little early, so I probably shouldn't be drinking too much of that just yet. Don't have too many other peppers on the go. Kind of wanted to work on the chicken coop today, but that's really loud and annoying, and I got out there and got the chainsaw all prepped to go ripping up some logs and discovered, oh, happy joy, the neighbors 2 houses down, they're having a birthday party for their son, and I don't want to be that neighbor, right? So I'm letting that go and kind of waiting. Hopefully, when the storm is done, and it looks like it is, windows are already drying up. Kind of ridiculous, but it still smells fresh. When the storm is done and the children are gone, we'll still have some time to rip through some of that timber. Chicken coop's actually starting to take shape now, so that's kind of fun and interesting too. Jackie, welcome, welcome. So what are we looking at here? 11 viewers, still just me. Shox is off doing her thing at the moment, a little bit of pet sitting and such. Hanging out with her friends, puppy dog and fish. Cute fish. Oscar's never really my thing, though. I like goldfish. They're hard to kill. That's the perfect quality in a fish for me. Hard to kill. Well, do we have any general random questions from the assembled crowd or as I take this down? Before we finish up today's live stream? Again, this bit close towards the tip, it's got that kind of a soapy taste. Tragically, I ate a lot of soap as a kid. I'm very familiar with what that taste is. Oh, that little bit of the pepper with the hint of soapy taste, not good. Well, that is not good at all. Well, hopefully, because in previous years, I didn't have that issue. So hopefully that's a soil quality thing. And I can work around that because I've got 32 of those I'm trying to root right now. Bacon killer, why don't you use a fish you can eat in your aquaponics? Well, that's a very common question, actually. Oh, a little bit of heat in that swallow. Woo! The reason I only use goldfish right now is because goldfish were really, really cheap. Feeder fish, you can get them anywhere. And they're really, really sturdy. They can live in some incredibly dirty water with really bad turnover rates and everything like that. So I knew even if the aquaponic system didn't work as well as I wanted for a filtration system, the goldfish would probably live through it. And then as kind of my gardens have developed, I've just kept on going with varieties of goldfish because in BC, I had to jump through some pretty serious hoops in the valley if I wanted to raise edible fish of any kind legally. And I figure since I'm broadcasting it onto the internet and I make it plain to my neighbors that I do that, I probably should keep my activities above the board, you know? Howdy Bounty, howdy Robert, evil genius. So yeah, I have not yet moved on to edible fish because it's just easier to keep things going. Now, that said, there's a lot less paperwork to moving into edible fish out here. So I will be getting on that in the future. However, I'm still not doing it yet because with my basement aquaponics system, the water temperature is still too cold and tilapia wouldn't make it. The tank is too small for catfish, too small for trout, too small for kokanee, obviously. So basically, since I don't want to throw a heater in there, I'm still stuck with the goldfish. But I've said this a few times. Once I get to a point where my aquaponic garden is in an earthship type situation and the water is maintained warm enough that the tilapia can survive, bam, I'm going to be into that because I want to get as much food out of that scenario as I can. And part of what we're trying to do on the property is to provide as much of our own food as we can. So if I could eat what's pooping to make my veggies, obviously that would be a win. Bounty, what did you just eat? I missed it. Sorry, I just ate Burpee hot lemon pepper, which was kind of an interesting event. 2 parts of it weren't that hot at all, and 2 parts of it were much hotter and tasted kind of soap. So I'm really not sure I liked that pepper. Evil plus goldfish produce more waste per ounce of fish. They are the hog. Yeah, they are like broiler chickens, man. All they do is eat and poop and eat and poop. What's got me sweating is the pepper because my tolerance to hot, spicy stuff is way, way down. Blue tilapia can live at 50 as far as I know. Oh, well, that's colder than I thought they could tolerate. I thought it was closer to 60 or 70. That changes things. I'll have to get the temp on the water downstairs. Yes, Bounty, unfortunately, it did taste of soap. It tasted rather like swearing at my parents as a young man and eating a bar of soap. There's a very mild sort of taste to it. And I mean, maybe that's what happened with the ones that I dehydrated previously, and they had that kind of aroma that I didn't care for and that kind of taste I didn't care for. It could be that soil quality thing that made that soap-like flavor in there. Or it could just be a really bad variety of pepper for my particular taste profile. There are people that eat cilantro and say it tastes of soap, and there are other people that eat that same bunch of cilantro or eat from that same bunch of cilantro. Don't taste it at all. So, oh, excuse me. I was pepper talking, not swear. I don't know. It's just not necessarily the greatest pepper in the world, I don't think. I'm hoping the Yahi lemon drop that I'm growing does have a better profile. Sweeter would be nice. No soap would be even better. But that's kind of how it goes, right? I'm growing through all of these different seeds that I find in places and you guys send me. And I love getting all these seeds in the mail, but they're all so completely random. I have no idea what I'm getting into with a lot of them. And, well, that's what makes it fun. So, yeah. The Apache tastes like soap. I have some Apache peppers, I think, in the stuff that Lloyd sent me, and I didn't notice that at all. I'd go off and check, but that leaves you guys staring at an empty office for a while. So that's kind of rude since you stopped over to join me, and I don't even have shocks here to amuse you while I'm gone. So, but I will look into that, and I'll try one of those just on their own. Again, it's dried because Lloyd sent me like this beautiful care package of dried peppers and seeds and more peppers. And I've been having a blast with that for like a year. Very, very tasty. But yeah, I will try that later on its own without mixing it into any food or anything and see if I notice even a hint of that soap-like taste. Doesn't really linger like from the pepper I just ate, but the spice lingers a little bit. The soap was just an upfront thing, and it's not great. Lakeway Tilapia is where I got my info. Cool. Um, I have no idea if that's in Canada or the States or anything, but I found a place out of Icemonton, I think it was, that breeds tilapia. And as long as I have my little broker's license or importer's license for Manitoba, they'll deliver out here. Or I can go get them, whichever. About a 12-hour drive to get to Edmonton from here, so I'll probably go get them. It's going to cost a small fortune in gas, but the road trips are always nice. Here on the East Coast, waiting on a Florence to arrive, the hurricane. Oh, good Lord. Well, good luck. Stay safe in that. Batten down your hatches, or what is it? Batten the hatches is a ship thing. It's the shutters. Close your shutters. Make sure you're good and safe from behind your glass there. Eric grew a tomato variety that is weird tasting this year. Almost made me sick to eat it. Rapunzel, look it up. It looks cool. See, that's kind of what's going on. You know, we're growing these things because they look cool, or we're growing these things because they taste good, or for grocery stuff, it's kind of this combination of it looks like it should taste good, doesn't really look good or taste good. Brutal. It's going to suck ass. Take out your garden. Oh, dude, Robert, harvest what you can, man. I have a table covered with early harvested stuff that probably would have lived through that first frost. But you know what? I would rather bring it in and be safe. You know, like Shock stood up some fried green tomatoes yesterday. Absolutely fabulous, by the way. If you want to know why I'm so hooked on fried green tomatoes, finally got her to do a remake of her video on that. I think she posted the remake today. Great little video. It's only like 7 minutes long. So something to do while you're stuck inside, because you're certainly not going to be outside in a hurricane. Looks like it's going to be a doozy. So you guys are both on the East Coast. Well, to all of you East Coasters, do be safe. I don't miss living on the coast. You know, I've never lived on the East Coast. I grew up on the West Coast, but I like being in the middle of the country. There's a certain comfort to all that. Evil, yeah, I'm getting as many old fish lights working to keep things alive indoors. Yeah, fish lights actually look pretty good. A lot of the lights that I've got wish listed that are on the more unusual side for Amazon to consider trying in my indoor gardening are fish lights. I found a few that you can just kind of like sit right on top of your tank, and they claim to be all the way up at 10,000 Kelvin instead of like 65,000 or 6,500, I should say. So in theory, if it'll grow coral, it ought to grow peppers pretty well, because coral is pretty sensitive from what I understand. Okay, I got some tomatoes. Taste like rot. Maybe nutrients has something to do with the taste. I don't know. See, okay, here's my thinking on that. I worked, and here's why. I worked at Starbucks for 18 months, a long time ago, and I went through their coffee training program, basically as a coffee master program, to teach you why the various coffee beans from all the different regions taste the way they do. And a lot of it boils down to either elevation or soil quality. So that's why I tend to think if, you know, I'm growing a pepper that tastes like X to me, but it tastes like Y to everybody else, then my soil's probably out of whack. Now, it might be like that with your tomatoes, or your tomatoes, that variety could be purely for this is a cool looking tomato. No one's ever actually eaten one, so they don't know, or, you know, who knows. I am old fashioned. I'm growing my things for how they taste. Trish, howdy. So what time is it where I'm at? It is 20 to 4, actually. So I'm in Central Time, Prairie Time. Not quite as cool as Saskatchewan, because they don't truck around with this daylight savings switch. They just kind of stay. What time it is what time it is what time it is. We do that jumping back and forth thing, which I don't particularly care for, but it is what it is. I think if you live somewhere where they make you change the time by an hour one way or the other, the next day should be a holiday just to compensate for screwing with all the clocks in your house. Trish, okay, I'm Eastern, so it's 4:40 there, I guess. I wonder if that hurricane coming in on the East Coast has to do with all of this, or has anything to do with all this wind that we're getting that seems to be coming from the east. I mean, we're way in the middle of things, so we're not going to get the actual nastiness of it, but a little bit of blow by, perhaps. I don't actually watch the news, therefore I don't actually watch meteorological reports and stuff like that. I get all of my weather stuff from Shocks and from various apps and stuff. But Shocks is really on top of that because she does her moon watching and her planet watching and her star watching. Yeah. So it's chilly. I turned the heater on for a bit. Yeah, I actually had to turn our furnace on the other day. I was not impressed about that. I'm already talking to Shocks about there's got to be some way we can put a fireplace down there and get some heat in the house from good old fashioned, wood burning instead of, was it 18 kilowatt furnace, which is great because when it's really, really cold and you kick the furnace on, it warms up real fast. But when that sucker's running, that's like almost $1 an hour. It's not pretty. It's really, really not pretty. And our house isn't terribly well insulated, so it runs rather a lot, during the wintertime. It's down to like minus 30. We've had it down to minus 40 something already in the 3 years that we've been here. And the Farmer's Almanac is predicting a particularly cold winter coming this year. Yay. I'm so excited. It is what it is, though, right? There's a reason we could afford the house. It's not in a prime location. Location. But the property size is nice. And the house itself is slightly larger than the one we used to rent. And it's ours. We don't have to pay rent anymore. We don't have to worry about a mortgage. So, yeah, it's beat up. It's run down. It's got some issues. It needs a lot of love. So do I. I can't say anything. Still out past the Bahamas, expected landfall around South Carolina. Oh, brutal. Yeah, I would not be comfortable living somewhere where that was an issue. Visited my aunt in Florida back in the 80s. I don't know if it would have been 85 or 87, but there was a hurricane coming in off the Gulf, I believe it was, Gulf of Mexico. Those waves were brutal. The wind was brutal. We were just kind of leaving the state as it was coming in, doing the worst of its damage. And yeah, that was about the time I decided I never wanted to be in anything like that ever again. Howdy, Ryan. Welcome to the show. Trish, how is a house in Canada not insulated well? Manitoba, and built to a standard of that'll do for now. And in a town that's like 135 years old, and it's not one of the newer houses. And all the additions that were put on here were, again, built to that standard of, well, that'll do for now. One of the first things one of the seniors in town mentioned as we moved, oh, you moved into the McCharles house. Well, that's a super efficient home. Have fun with that. Oh, well, what do? We bought a house online. We hadn't actually stepped foot on the property, sealed the deal, paid for it entirely, came out here hoping for the best. Detecting a theme in my life here, hoping for the best. Good enough for now. So whoever had this house beforehand clearly had the same kind of mentality that Shocks and I do. But that's fine. It's a project, This isn't necessarily where we want to be long term. I still very much want to build our Earthship for us to live in so that hydro is a moot point, water is a moot point. All of those things are basically taken care of. If you're not familiar with Earthship concepts, this is probably kind of Greek to you, and it's well worth looking into. Michael Reynolds. Cans of insulating foam. Not as effective as you might think. I took a couple of those down to the dungeon, and yeah, no, some mice or something has pushed some of them in through the holes that I've stuffed, and kind of looks like some insects have burrowed through another few different places. So I probably did that wrong. Should have cleaned it or tacked it or primered it or something first. I don't know, but it didn't really work well for me. One of these days, and it'll be on the farm channel when I do it, I'll show y'all the biggest issue that we have with keeping heat in the house. And that is what we refer to as the blue room or the studio. In fact, there may actually be a video on the farm channel about the blue room and what's the deal with the blue room. It's still got the original insulation from when this house was built, which is a really good way for us to kind of go, well, when was this house built? Because the roof and attic is insulated with wood chip. Wood chip. Old, old house. The walls are lath and plaster on there. It's just, it needs a lot of loving up. And our plan is to step by step over it, and we'll get, you know, Fuzzy's room done or the upstairs bathroom done or one half of the studio done, and then we'll move something and do it and move something and do it. We can get a rebate on the insulation if we do it all at once, but unfortunately we need to get like a 40-foot shipping can in the driveway to put all of our stuff into, so that we've got the space available with all of those rooms, because we've got a lot of projects on the go, and we're both, Shocks and I, are for sorting through an awful lot of family history. So it's just the house is stuffed. Oh, excuse me. Build you a greenhouse around your house. I'd like to, except for a couple of problems with that. One, Shocks would kill me. We've joked a few times, and that's where I have to leave it, as I was joking about putting basically greenhouses, mini greenhouses, on all of the windows that open. For example, there's one right in front of me, gets beautiful morning light. So if I put a half a greenhouse on that in the morning in the winter time, that would warm up so nice. We could open up the window, we'd have free heat just kind of passing in through that. We've got two windows out in the front, the south facing windows. Just, they're tiny little windows. I don't know what the hell they were thinking when they built this place, but they are good, like triple pane, like really well insulated. The windows are better insulated than the walls. Okay. But I've been talking about putting a sunroom kind of greenhouse on the front there, basically since we moved in, because again, with the southern facing light, I would, you know, pour a pretty decent amount of heat through that one opening window. And then our bedroom off the back addition there, we have, that's pretty much the only window on the western side of the house. So that's where our evening sun comes in. And I was joking, well, we should put a little half greenhouse over there too. And she brought up the very valid point about, well, how do we open up a window to get fresh air if they're all enclosed in greenhouses? So she's got me on that one. One last beer and you're going to sleep. Well, here, I'll have a drink with you. It's not really a beer, but at least you're not drinking alone. So yeah, it's an interesting idea though. And I have seen that one on YouTube where the entire house had like a greenhouse structure over it, and it kind of looks like it's got the patio all the way around it. And that just reminds me of that old expression about people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. I have too many projectile toys. They ricochet. That just scares me. That really, really scares me. The idea that all breaking and shards of glass coming down, unless you're using like bulletproof glass, and that would get pretty pricey. Nope. My solution, I just want an earthship. Good, solid pane of glass up front, even if you got to go bulletproof for that, not too terribly expensive. Well, compared to doing a whole house anyway. And then with your thermal banking for your heat, you know, maybe take 1 or 2 years to get charged up here in Canada, because we've got such short summers. Might still require to have an actual fireplace in there, but that doesn't bother me at all. I like fireplaces. And I have this thing, I obsessively, compulsively collect firewood. I always have. So not having a fireplace kind of messes with me, but we've got one in the side yard. So I pretend that the obsessive compulsive collection of firewood is for the fire pit. But really, it's just, I think it boils down to a fear of freezing to death, past life issues or something. I don't know. Well, Ritsuku, you know what? I think if it's midnight there, it's going on 4 o'clock here. I should probably wrap this up too, because I haven't got any more peppers to mow down on. And that way you got to be here for the full thing. So laying in bed, listening to the bear. Well, I have toyed with the idea of doing bedtime stories, you know. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Sit there and read it off. I got told back in the bingo hall days that got a voice for radio, and I'm like, yeah, I got a face for radio too, but everybody's always like, no, 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 but you can see it in their eyes. They're like, yep, better if we didn't have to see you. You know what? I've done a lot of jobs. Most dangerous profession I ever had, bingo caller. Those old ladies are crazy. It's really all there is to that. But yeah, I'm going to wrap this up, I think. I'm going to say thank you all for joining me in this another totally random sort of live video. They are completely random, and I'm sorry, not sorry for that, because I'm still kind of getting into the swing of it, and the schedules scare me because I have issues keeping to a schedule. But yeah, I do that whole, you guys know where to find me, blah, blah, blah. Click subscribe, click the bell, click thumbs up. I'm assuming you've already done that, but I don't know. And I'm assuming you're already subbed. Or how did you even know this thing was live? So, yeah. Thank you guys for joining me. Have yourselves an absolutely fantastic weekend. Tomorrow would normally be a full garden update, but I don't have much of a garden, so I'm not entirely sure what's happening for tomorrow's video. Check that out if you want to see. I won't know until tomorrow either. So, yeah. Take care, everybody.